Well, hello, and buongiorno. So I wanted to do this video out on the porch, but it's way too cold out there right now. I figured we just put the tree up, and so despite the absolutely terrible lighting, we're going to shoot it here because it's a little bit festive. All right, so a few months ago, I did a patron video, which is basically kind of an introduction to wine by way of me going out and buying a case. And it was a lot of fun. I sort of, everyone got that initial video, and then the patrons got like little tasting notes and impressions on each of the wines, and generally a good case. The Pinot Noir was not great, but there were some definite winners in there. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I went and I asked the patrons what they wanted me to do as a follow-up, because, doing little posts kind of just for them was a lot of fun. I wanted to do some more of that. And there were some ideas. There was some like some cocktailing things, and I might still do that if I can find a good angle on it. But a lot of people were like, more wine, please. Which is weird because this is supposed to be a spirits channel and stuff, but they're the ones paying me money, so we're going to do some more wine. And particularly, there was some interest in Italian wine. So, we're going to do a case of Italian wine today. So, yeah. Italian wine was the one I felt like got the most shortchanged as a category with the first introduction to wine case. So this one's going to be just all Italy and an attempt to introduce all of Italian wine by way of 12 bottles. So same scenario as last time, basically. It's I don't know what your market is. I don't know what's available to you, what pricing is, but I just wanted to go to my local Binny's in the South Loop and grab 12 bottles on a budget, a little over the last one. We're at maybe $230, $240 with this one because I bought some expensive bottles, or more expensive bottles this time. And, just try to build a case for some imaginary person who just wanted an introduction to wine in general, and this time to wine in Italy. All right, so that's the scenario. I'm going to explain why I picked the things that I did, and hopefully the idea is that you can kind of use my reasoning to, make your own calls, even if you can't get these exact bottles at these exact prices. So let's go through these. I think I did, and it's impossible. So Italy is one of those places where there's thousands of different varietals out there, and different regions and different geographical indicators, and it gets all incredibly complicated. It's all very nuanced. There's a lot of commonality. You're going to find a lot of white wines that taste like green apple with some rocks. You're going to find a lot of red wines that taste like, earthiness and red fruit. There's going to be a lot of commonalities, but there's also a lot of just individuality and detail and things that no matter how much you learn about wine, there's always going to be something out there in Italy that you have never tried before. So I think I did pretty well this case. I got 3 wines from the north, northwest, and northeast. I got, I think, 4 wines from central Italy. Is that right? I think, yes. 4 wines from central Italy, because Abruzzo counts. 3 wines from southern Italy, which is my jam. And then 2 wines from the islands. And I think that is, so we're going to work through these, and I will explain to you why I picked them. And first, we're going to start with the one that would have been my 13th wine in the last case. It's a Barolo. I grabbed a Barolo because if you have to pick a wine from the Piedmont, which is northwestern Italy, you have to pick a Nebbiolo. That's the grape. And if you have to pick a Nebbiolo, you have to pick a Barolo. And I will tell you why. Even if you don't care at all about Italian wine, you need to try some Barolos. Well, Nebbiolos in general, but particularly Barolos. And the reason why is because they provide a benchmark for tannins and acidity, which you wouldn't think just popping this and pouring it into a glass. The Barolos look very light in color. They're like Pinot Noirs. You can usually see your fingers through them. I should say Nebbiolos. Light in color. They you can nose them blind, and they smell a lot like Pinot Noirs. You're like, oh, violets and some earthiness, some forest floor, and some red fruit. It smells like a Pinot Noir. And then you taste it. Initially, you're like, this is a bit more full body than I expected a Pinot to be. And it's on the back end that you're you know the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark where the Nazis' faces all melt off? That's Nebbiolo. That's Nebbiolo. If you were, so the reason why you want to try one of these is because at some point you'll be tasting a wine and you'll be thinking, the acidity on that is really zippy. And then you have to stop yourself and think, okay, but is it Nebbiolo high acidity? And if it isn't, then it's not high acid. And then you might try another wine and think, wow, the tannins of that are really chewy and aggressive. But if they're not like Barolo Nebbiolo high, they're not high tannins. Like this is the benchmark for high tannins and high acidity. And that is why you need to buy yourself a Barolo. Now, this is the cheapest Barolo that Binny's had. This is the Bergadano 2019, which is a baby, but I'm going to taste it anyways and chew my way through it with the heaviest food I can find for the patrons. So I've tried some upper level Bergadanos before. I think they're single vineyard offering, and I was delighted. This is the first time I've tried their basic little guy. But expectations are high. I mean, it is a Barolo, so stringent rules about how long it has to be aged before release, and it's also from the Good Earth Wines folks, which is a Chicago importer. I've met the owner a couple of times. She's a little bit crazy, but she's fantastic, and their wines are generally very good values. This is around $26 or something, and if it's good, this is a buy, because you could age this stuff for good Barolos for decades. Bergadano Barolo 2019 was my first pick, and that is the representation of the Piedmont. I mean, there's tons of. I am leaving out so much stuff with this case. I mean, Northwest Italy alone. I mean, you're talking about Arnice, you're talking about Gavi, you're talking about the Northeast. We're not. I don't have anything from Trentino or Alto Adige in here, and that breaks my heart because there's some awesome stuff going on there. But I only have 12 bottles, folks. All right, so that covers the Piedmont, and now we're heading east to the Veneto, and the first Veneto wine I picked was a Soave Classico. Because, I mean, this is really, once you get Pinot Grigio out of the way, and Pinot Grigio's it's just not an Italian grape. It's a mutation of Pinot Noir. I did think of throwing, there was a couple of wines I thought about throwing in this case that didn't make it. One was like a cheap $6 Pinot Grigio, just so you know what it tastes like. I mean, Pinot Grigio is mainly, there are some good ones. I don't think the good ones are worth the money. I think these are worth the money. But basic Pinot Grigios basically taste like some apple, some pear, some stale beer, and some rocks. And that's basically what you're getting. These are much better. Soaves are probably, if you're limiting yourself to actual Italian wines, these are the most prominent Italian white wines. Tend to be made from Garganega is the big grape. We're talking kind of right in the center of the Veneto region, maybe leaning a little bit west. But these wines, okay, so this is where location gets difficult. This is a Soave Classico, and Classico, whenever you see that on an Italian wine label, is an indication that this is the original Soave region, and then afterwards they did an expansion on it. It's going to be the same thing with Chianti when we get there. Anyways, Soave Classicos tend to have a little bit more weight, a little bit more richness. They tend to take on a nutty character, which is great. And they're just phenomenal white wines. This is, under $15. I got this for. Inama's a classic producer. And this sees a little bit of maceration on skins. So if you have friends who keep telling you about orange wines and how amazing they are, and you don't like them, try throwing this at them and tell them if, and see if they're into it. Yeah, Inama Van Soave 2024. Just great food wines. Throw them in all the foods. Stop buying your crappy Pinot Grigio. For the love of God. All right, but we're not done with the Veneto because we have to go to Valpolicella. Valpolicella, just outside of Verona, it's the big red wine region in the Veneto, and Valpolicellas are really. They're the red Italian wines that you can American Cali drinkers would really enjoy. They have a lot of fruit. They have acidity, but not too much acidity. They have tannins, but not too much tannins. They're really just delicious. The problem is once Cali drinkers tend to get interested in Italian wine and stuff, they tend to veer away from that style. They really want the acid and the kind of Italianness, but regular Valpolicellas are still fantastic. There's also a Classico region there. There's also the Superiore, which has its own requirements. But the special thing about Valpolicella is the appassimento method. Appassimento means when you pick your grapes, instead of throwing them straight into your apparatus and then crushing them and then pressing them, you are basically laying them out on mats to dry. Appassimento is when you let the grapes turn into raisins before you vinify them, which really, really concentrates the flavors and the sugars. And the Amarone della Valpolicella is the category of basically making wine out of those raisins, and they are huge honkin' wines. This one is a crazy value. It's still in 30s, but we're talking low 30s for wine that is a gigantic pain in the ass to make. And they're delicious. If you have friends who are drinking the Prisoner, or any ridiculous huge 15% Pinot Noirs, you need to introduce them to this style of wine. They're huge. This is 16.5% alcohol, and that's pretty normal for this style. But they're also like classic Italian wines. They bring acidity. They bring freshness. Again, break out the food, but if it can handle it, get these. So, Ilatium, this is also brought in by the Good Earth Wines folks. 2018 Amarone. This is a little bit of a special case because it is so inexpensive for an Amarone. Again, if you can't get this, go seek out a ripasso from Valpolicella, which is basically they take the Amarone leftovers, the leftover dried grapes, and they soak the next batch of wine in it. They macerate, yeah. So it's repassing the next batch of wine through your used Amarone stuff, and you get a very good sense of what Amarones are, what that style is, which is basically like high-proof raisinets in delicious red wine form, without spending that kind of money, because they do tend to get expensive. So that's from the most expensive wine in the pack. We are going to the least expensive wine in the pack. I grabbed this. What's the producer? Grifoni Tarà Pecorino. This is from the Marche, which is the region. So we're moving into central Italy. This is right on the other side of the boot from Tuscany. So Tuscany is on the west side of the group. The boot. If you go to the east side, that's the Marche. The classic wine from the Marche is probably Verdicchio, but I couldn't find one that I really liked, so I got this instead. Pecorinos it's a very, very old grape. It almost died out, and they kind of got revived. And this is cheap. This is $10-12, and they're generally just phenomenal values. They present as a kind of cross between like a Spanish Albarino and a French Muscadet, because they got that kind of like the peachy thing that you can sometimes get in Albarino, and the also the floral thing, and the kind of the acidity with some of the saline quality, the salt water quality that you get in a Muscadet. And some of them also see lees aging, which can give them a little bit of that same nutty character you can get in Muscadet. I love these. I think these are some of the best, just grab them and pop them white wines out there. Marché in general is just hugely underrated. And as much as I'm doing injustice to so many regions in Italy with this case, I mean, there's no Lombardy, for God's sake. I really wanted to give one to the Marché, so go buy this. This is a great little white wine value. All right, continuing on into in central Italy, we have to go to Tuscany because Tuscany is the big famous one, and we have to go to Sangiovese, which is the grape in Tuscany. And I was hoping, I did a Chianti in the last case, which was quite good actually. And I wanted to do something different. So I was looking at Vino Nobile de Montepulciano, and I kind of ruled that out because they didn't really speak to me. I mean, the big name in Sangiovese in Italy is Brunello, of course. Me and Brunello have never really got along. They're big structured wines. I always feel like I never opened one at the right time. It's always been too early and too late, and they're very expensive for what they are. And the Rossos from Montalcino, the baby Brunellos, also like I never feel like I'm getting something that steps up from a basic Chiantis, Vino Nobles, even Morolinos Descansano from further south. So all of that overthinking really drove me back to Chianti, and I thought about getting maybe a Gran Selezione, which is this new category in Chianti, which is kind of there to compete with Brunello. They're the really extra aged, high standard things out there, and they're delicious, but again, I couldn't swing the price point. But then I spotted this, which is very interesting. This is the Il Selciato. I'm going to butcher all this pronunciation. I apologize. Chianti Classico Riserva. So this is... We'd already talked about Riserva in the last video. Riserva means you have to hold it back by 2 years, and some of that has to be bottle aging, and the rest can be kind of whatever you want it to be, oak or steel or whatever. But Classico, again, is the original Chianti region, sort of just outside of Florence. And this was like $14, and it's as part of the Binny's Vineyard Select program, their little equivalent to the Total Wine, whatever that is. That's incredibly cheap for a Chianti Classico Riserva. And so I thought this was worth a whirl. It is 100% Sangiovese, and it goes into barrel for 12 months, and the rest is bottle age. And yeah, that seems like pretty good value. So if this is good, like I may go back for a couple of bottles of this, because that's on paper that's very good. All right, we're not leaving Tuscany yet. All right, I need to talk about Super Tuscans because it's a term you have heard. If you have gone into an Italian wine section at any point, you've probably seen a sign that says Super Tuscans. And that doesn't mean the wines are super, that they're better. It's just it's a term that Robert Parker came up with around the turn of the 90s to describe a phenomenon that was happening. Okay, so basically, post-war wine regulations, geographical indication laws in Tuscany, after the war, going up until like the 90s, were, how do I put this? Producers saw them as being excessively restrictive and sort of lowering the quality of the wine they were able to put out under those under those regulations. So, for example, you couldn't make a Chianti that was entirely Sangiovese. You had to include other grapes into it. And so during that time period, starting in the 60s, you started to see producers basically sell declassified wines, sell their wines as table wines, but using that declassification as a way to make their wines better. So one side of that was you did see people in the Chianti region starting to make 100% Sangiovese, which was illegal under the regulations. So they had to sell it as table wine. And you also saw from Sassicaia, from Antinori, the Tignanello folks, the use of Bordeaux varietals. Well, international varietals more broadly, but particularly from Bordeaux, particularly Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, were blended in with Sangiovese, which was totally against regulation, but they could still sell as table wine. The thing is, these things started to sell. Robert Parker gave them the name Super Tuscan, and here we are. The regulations have now stepped up. I'm sorry. Regulations have stepped up, so now you can sell things as there's a general Toscana certification, and Bulgaria, which is the kind of coastal region where Sassicaia, Ornellaia, those wines are coming from. That's also now its own DOC. So yay. Anyways, here's the thing: the Super Tuscans, those folks, are not the first people to add Cabernet to a wine in Tuscany. That credit goes to Carmignano. Carmignano is a village and a wine-growing region just west of Florence, kind of just outside of Chianti. And for a while it was grouped into Chianti. But it was one of the original regions that the Medici sort of declared as high-quality wine, sort of gave it the first geographical label protection. And in the 1800s or so, no one's sure exactly when, they started including Cabernet, maybe Franc, maybe Sauvignon, I'm not sure. They started including Cabernet into their blends. So this is really, in some ways, the first Super Tuscan. Carmignano is a really phenomenal wine. So this is the Capezzana, the basic one. They make a Barco Reale as well, which is much cheaper. It's sort of their, Rosso del Montalcino for this region. But this is the Villa di Capezzana, which is their basic bottling. 2 years old, one in oak, one in bottle, and this is a monster. I mean, I've had these wines for years, and they're just such grippy, structured examples of what Sangiovese can be, with a little bit of dark fruit and also extra tannins and acidity coming from the Cabernet Sauvignon. And they're cheap. Like, this is mid-20s. It's still one of the more expensive wines in the case, but relative to the power you were getting, this is crazy stuff. So yeah, if you have been spending too much money on Bulgaris and other Super Tuscans, go buy this. I mean, this is crazy. Or even just like, if you're a Bordeaux maniac, if you're a Pauillac maniac and you have an extra $25 to spend, well, 25, 30, I forget how much, go hunt this down, because this will blow your socks off with these sheet. I mean, it's an under $30 wine you could easily age for 20 years. These are really impressive wines. Okay, moving on. We're staying in central Italy, but we're moving to Abruzzo for Montepulciano. Not to be confused with the town in Tuscany, which might be the origin of the grape. No one's really sure, but don't get confused about that. Montepulciano d'Abruzzo has, among wine nerds, is kind of regarded as the categories that normal people go for, simple pizza wine, more or less. Think the wine with I forget the name, with the stick on it. Tell me know what that is. But the stick wine is not great. I will agree to that. It's not even as good as it used to be. And it wasn't ever that great. But Montepulciano can be made into really, really good wines if you step up to good producers and a Riserva. And this is a Riserva. Again, higher standards than the basic bottling. This is Illuminati. Ilico is from a single vineyard. Sees about a year in large barrels and some time in oak too. This is a 2020. And yeah, these tend to be, they aren't huge wines. They bring kind of medium plus-ish body. They bring some dark fruit. They also bring some red fruit. They bring a real kind of herbaceous, tobacco-y kind of character. And surprising acid and tannins for the price point. So these are great little values. I will probably break this out for pizza at some point because, it is great for that. So, yeah. Montepulciano di Abruzzo, I grabbed the Ilico 2020 Riserva, which is well under $20. I didn't even get it up into the upper teens. I don't remember. All right. Moving to southern Italy. And Campania, one of my absolute favorite regions in Italy for wine, period. So for Campania, I really wanted to buy a Terrassi, which is a wine based on the Aglianico grape. And they're basically the Barolo of southern Italy. They're really structured, highly aromatic, complex wines that can age for decades. But the one they had at Binny's was just a little bit out of my price range again. So I still wanted to do something from Campania. So I grabbed this, which is just kind of a showcase of southern Italian wine nerdery. This is the Vestini Campagnano Kajanero. And it is from the geographical indication is Terre del Volturno. And there is some Aglianico in here. That's kind of the classic red Campania grape. But I cannot, there are other grapes in here I cannot even remember. Yeah, 20% Aglianico. But also, are you ready? 40% Palagrello Nero, 30% Casavecchia, 10% Pizzotella. So, if you wanted wine nerdery in under $15 in a bottle, here you go. And it's a great little wine. I've had this before. This is the 2020. It's 12.5% alcohol, so relatively lean. But it brings a, how do I describe this? It's a little Manny Pacquiao of a wine. It's lean, but it punches hard. It has some citrus elements, it has some floral elements, but there's also like a red and dark fruit again. There's like a licorice thing on this, which is really interesting. Heavy. I would go heavy pasta on this. I think would be fantastic. But yeah, super nerdy wine, not expensive, well worth your time, and just a great representation of what Campania can do. Now I was going to go Campania for the white as well, and that didn't work out. I wanted a Fiano because Fiano is kind of there's a bunch of really cool white southern Italian varietals. But I couldn't get a Fiano from Campania, which is the general place you find it. But I did find a cool one from Salento, which is in Puglia. This is who is making this? Produttori di Manduria, Uni Fiano from Salento. So Fiano is a grape. It does a kind of, how do I describe it? So it has a pear and lemon kind of thing, and also like a little bit of a melon kind of character. But they're also just like a lot of white wines from southern Italy. It has more weight to it than you expect based on the ABV. Like this is 13% alcohol, which is pretty high for a Fiano, honestly. They tend to roll in around 12.5. But these have a mouth-filling kind of character to them, and even a kind of waxiness sometimes that is really a step beyond what you would think from where the alcohol is. So dry, refreshing, phenomenal food wines. They have acid, but not too much. So this was like $15. Oh, Massimo's bringing it in. Good importer. And yeah, I haven't. A bunch of these I've never tried before. The vast majority of the box I haven't tried before, and that is one of them. So I will report to the patrons how that went. All right. All right. Also from Puglia, if we're staying in southern Italy, this might be my favorite wine in the world. This is Cupertino Riserva from the Cantina Sociale Cooperativa. This is all Negro Amaro, and Negro Amaro is it's a very tumbleweedy, tobacco-y, kind of dark, grungy grape, and I love it a lot. But the reason why I love this wine is because this is their current release in 2016. They always hold this thing back. And it is 13% alcohol, which is relatively low, and it presents the flavor notes on this are different, but in terms of energy, this presents like, old world Burgundy or something. Think about this. This is from Puglia. This is from, the heel of the Italian boot. It's very, very, very hot in Burgundy. In Puglia. But the vibe on this is very old world wine. This is very classical wine. Lean, high acid, structured. There's fruit, but it's like bush fruit, freshly picked fruit. It's not like ripe, jammy fruit. And there's a definite floral, weird, herbaceous character to this. It's slightly stinky, and man, it is just made for food. So, from a very, very, very hot place, you are getting a classical old world style wine. We tend to associate old world with cooler regions. Not this. Yeah, absolutely. If I had to pick one wine to live on for the rest of my life, it might be this stuff. Like, pair it with everything. All right, we're moving to the islands. I wanted to do something from Sardinia, so I just grabbed an old classic. Costa Molino from Argiolas, which is one of the big producers on Sardinia. Oh, Winebow's bring this in. Vermentino is... it's made all over Italy. You'll see it from in Tuscany and in central Italy, a little bit up north as well. Liguria, I think, makes some. And it's just a terrific little grape, very pear-driven, but also takes on a lot of minerality, rocks, salt water. Can bring some aniseed kind of characteristics too. High acid, ripping acid, great with seafood, salads, super versatile. Stop drinking your boring Sauvignon Blancs. Go try this. All right. And lastly, we had to go to Sicily. This is another one where I splurged a little bit, but not too much. This is the Barone di Villagrande Etna Rosso. Etna Rosso is, as the name indicates, a wine grown it's a wine grown on the side of an active volcano, Mount Etna. And it tastes like it. If you're a Pinot Noir fan, you need to try this because it brings kind of the earthy nature of Pinot Noir plus the kind of sour red fruit kind of character of Pinot Noir, the florals. But it does all that against a background of volcanic soil. So there's a little bit of a basalt, slightly ashy character to this, which I love. This is mostly Nerello Mascalese, but I think they're also bringing in some of the other Nerello grapes there. There's a whole family of them. And so if a lot of the wines in this box, the reds, can serve as Pinot Noir substitutes, but this one probably more so than others. Etna Rosso was not a category on anyone's radar until the 2014 vintage happened, and it was phenomenal, and it kind of blew everyone's socks off. And here we are. Now it's gotten, probably 50% more expensive, and that makes me a little mad, but they're still phenomenal wines. All right, so that is my case. That is my attempt to introduce Italian wine, like with what I have, with what I can get in my local binnies, in 12 bottles. And the patrons get reports on how these went. And thanks for watching. And cheers. I swear, I've tried to move a lamp or something over there, and it just never quite works. I got a little light, and it's not enough. All right, bye. I think, I don't know what we'll do next week. We'll figure it out. Bye.